What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome on in. It's 1TS Daily Live right here at One True Sport. How's it going? I'm Zack Heydorn from a cold and snowy Chicago, from Breasting Media and from Sports Illustrated. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're glad you're here. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. We've got AEW Dynamite tonight. We had NXT last night. And, you know, the wrestling world and the wrestling news cycle churns on. Lots going on, lots to get to. Glad you are here with me today. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. Always a pleasure to have you. If you are checking us out on Twitter today, on Twitter X, thank you for being here. And we're glad to have you. We have our live chat open. It is open and ready and waiting for you guys to dive on in and start chatting away. If you have a question that you want me to get to on the show, please drop it in the live chat. If you have a comment or a topic that you want to discuss, toss it in there. We'll see what we can get to. I also have super chats open. So if you can make a super chat and you can ask a question that way, that'd be much appreciated. We appreciate the contribution. I thank you. I thank you in advance for that. Always helps. It's a big help for the show. Big help for me. Thank you in advance. So I'll keep an eye on both of those if you are able. If you're able to do that. Real quick, a little bit of business at hand. Brashring Media, our Brashring Media live podcast. Brashring Media is the shop that I run. We specialize in long form analysis of professional wrestling. We ported over all of our live shows to One True Sport at the beginning of the year. So we are doing all of our live shows right here on the One True Sport YouTube channel. However, if you're not able to catch them on YouTube, you can download them as audio podcasts. So I encourage everybody, and I hope you do, go subscribe to the Brasherie Media podcast feed. That way you won't miss any of our live shows. That includes my show twice a week, and a host of others from some really, really great co-hosts and hosts over there at Brasherie Media. So check that out. We also have a membership tier, which I'd love for some of our One True Sport listeners to jump on in and get involved with. It's only $4 a month, and you get all sorts of cool perks and just cool stuff throughout the week for your $4 a month. So check it out over on Patreon, patreon.com/BrassRigMedia. More on Brass Ring Media in a little bit, but let's get to the chat here. Matthew is in there and goes, yeet, yeet. I think that's supposed to be a yeet. Maybe not Matthew. I don't know. But hello, either way. Glad you're here. Darren, all the way from Northern Ireland. Holy cow, that is really cool. Thanks, Darren, for being here. I see your question in there. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that here in a minute. The boss is in there, says it snowed on Sunday. 14 degrees today. Wind chill is 4. Yeah, that's pretty much where we were at yesterday. It's a little bit warmer today in Chicago, but man, it's it's cold. It's winter. It's winter. I'm somebody that, like, not that this is a weather show, but I'm somebody who, I like cold weather. I like winter up until right about now. So it's fine in November, fine in December for the holidays, fine like right around the new year. But man, now that we're past all that, baseball season's on the horizon, man, I want the warm weather back. I want the warm weather back, and I want it right away. And it's not going to be here for a little bit. So yikes. See, I need shows like this to help get me through to warm weather. But thanks a bunch, boss. I appreciate it. All right, let's hit some of the news of the day. We'll start off there. Then we're also going to preview AEW Dynamite tonight, and we'll do a quick review of NXT last night. Ricky Starks, news dropped this morning that rumor, I guess, from Wrestle Purists, dropped this morning that Ricky Starks asked for his release from AEW, and Tony Khan denied that request. The quote from Wrestle Purists is, at the end of the day, things happened to where Ricky Starks, is on the outs with AEW right now. It is what it is. There's a lot of things. Most of it will never be reported, but ultimately there's a falling out there, and it is what it is. He asked for a release. Tony won't give it to him, and he's just going to wait the rest of his deal. So, yeah, that that is where Ricky Starks is. If you're asking this question, Darren, where's Ricky Starks and Wardlow? Obviously we don't have the same report today about Wardlow, but my guess is it's pretty similar. It's pretty similar. The Ricky Starks situation is really baffling to me. On one hand, it's, look, if you're not going to do business, you're not going to do business, right? You can't force somebody to wrestle. But it to me, it's indicative of a bigger issue where Tony Khan is just not able to get past these certain situations with certain talents. Like Ricky Starks has way too much upside, way too much potential. And frankly, he's been given a lot in AEW to just be held on the sidelines. Like, you're paying him, you have him under contract, use him. Figure out what you have to do to get the business done with him and get him in your ring. Like, this is what I don't get. Like, you're not sticking it to him necessarily. Let me take a step back. I'm sure Ricky Starks wants to work, right? No question. It seems that way. He even I've got a quote from Chris Van Vliet here when he was with him in regards to this. And Starks said, "Beats me. I could have 1,000 theories about what's really going on. The fact of the matter is that if I don't have an answer, I can't just make up an answer for people and just assume. Would I love to know the exact reason? For sure. Do I have speculations about why I'm gone or why I haven't been used? Absolutely. So there's a recognition on his part that something's up. But to me, this isn't on Ricky Starks. Like, yes, he's got to play ball, and yes, he's got to figure out a way to work within the system. But it's really on the company, and it's on Tony Khan to figure out a way to mend these issues with talent, especially talent that you're just going to keep on the sidelines for no reason. I just don't know who that benefits. You got to figure out a way to get him in the ring. That's where he has value for you. He doesn't have value for you sitting on the sidelines, because as soon as the contract's up, he's going to go to WWE and he's going to have more buzz there than you could have ever had for him. You got to get something out of the guy. And frankly, look, Ricky Starks is a talented guy. He's had some big time matches for Tony. And falling outs happen. It doesn't just happen in the wrestling business. It happens in all facets of work life. Not everything's going to go perfectly. But you got to figure out a way to get past it. You got to figure out a way to get Ricky Starks in the ring so that you have a chance of maybe keeping him. Maybe you can mend fences. It's just like winning in a sports league, right? Like, you could have all the problems in the world, but if you win, those problems don't seem as bad. And so if Ricky Starks is out there and he's in your ring and he's contributing, right? And he's working, and whether he's winning matches or losing matches, doesn't matter. If he's contributing, like, maybe he changes his tune when his contract comes up. But you can't find that. You can't get that until you get him in the ring. You just can't. And I think that if he stays off AEW TV, when he appears in NXT or when he appears in WWE, man, he's going to have all the buzz in the world. He's going to be a hot commodity when that happens. And he's a talented guy. So get him in the ring. They got to figure out a way to do business with these guys. I think it's the right call for Tony not to let him out of his contract. That's for sure. You sign the contract, you're either working with us or you're sitting on the sidelines. But you have to then come to the middle on how we're going to work with you, and this is what we're going to do, and let's get you back to work. That's the chapter of this story that it doesn't seem to be very well written from the perspective of Tony Khan. And it's a shame because Ricky Starks, man, I mean, I remember seeing him like in the in NWA on NWA Power, you know, back before the pandemic, right? When NWA Power was at its peak and making waves a little bit because it was a studio show and it was fresh and it looked different than everything else. And there was Ricky Starks, this guy who just like bounced off the page, like just screamed like a guy that was bursting at the seams for a bigger opportunity and a bigger stage. Then he has the match with Cody in AEW for the TNT Championship, the Open Challenge, and the rest is history. You know, he, like, by all accounts, you know, he's a homegrown AEW guy. So they've got to figure out a way, and it's on Tony. I mean, and it's on Ricky too. But first, it's on the promotion to just get him in the ring, get him there, do it. You need to. You have to play ball. You got to play ball. Sometimes you got to put feelings aside, personal grudges aside, and get the business done. Get the business done. Matthew says here in the live chat, Starkman is going to be a menace when he comes to WWE. Yeah. I don't know how much time he has left on his deal, but he is going to be a hot commodity, I think. In AEW, you want that return to be with you, not on WWE TV. Andrew H, what's up, Andrew? Says Starks is a really fun guy to meet and greet with too. Gave everyone 10 minutes, super nice in real life. That does not surprise me. I mean, I've heard him in interviews. He seems like a real down-to-earth guy, real nice guy. So there's no reason, you know, he could be a good face of your organization doing that. Imagine that guy doing media for you. Like, but you gotta play ball. You gotta play ball, and you gotta learn, you know, when to pull back on your flexing. And it seems like now is the time. It's silly to keep him under contract and just have him not wrestle for you. Like, what are we doing? How does that help anybody? The boss says, do you still follow any NWA? If so, what are your thoughts on Maxie and Taylor? A little bit. I do a little bit, very little bit. It really kind of faded out of my purview after, you know, NWA Power in its original form kind of went away and went under because of the pandemic. It just kind of fizzled. But Maxie and Taylor I've seen, and strong talent, you know, strong talent. I don't know if there's going to be bigger opportunities there for that act, but I think that there's potential. I definitely think that there's potential. Thanks, boss. All right, so that's Ricky Starks. Yeah, Dusty Foundation loves him. Yes, he does. But that's the thing, you know. Like, I don't know. I'd love to know what happened there, and someday it'll come out. Like, I know the Wrestle Purist report says, hey, we'll probably never know. We'll know. I think we'll know. I disagree with that. Like, someone's going to write a book. Ricky Starks will write a book someday, or Tony Khan hopefully will write a book someday. I mean, there you go. There's your fascinating read, you know, in 25 years. Tony Khan, you know, the creation of AEW, like, will be fascinating. So I think it'll come out at some point. All right. Speaking of AEW, let's talk about tonight's episode of Dynamite. We got a pretty big show, going down tonight in multiple ways. We got the rated R superstar Cope. I can't believe that's still a thing, and it's not Adam Copeland, but I guess it's Cope. So it's Cope versus Pac. Cope versus Pac tonight on AEW Dynamite. We've got Samoa Joe versus Nick Wayne. We've got Julia Hart versus Jamie Hayter. Swerve Strickland's going to take on AR Fox. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay will have a face-to-face. And then what I presume will be the main event, the World Tag Team Championships are going to be on the line. Private Party defending against Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. So I think it's a pretty fun card, even though Cope versus Pac sounds strange. It's a pretty interesting match, right? Cope is in the middle of this feud with Jon Moxley and the Death Riders. This makes sense that you now line up the Death Riders for Cope to take out, pretty much, right? Take him out, and then eventually he gets to Jon Moxley, and he gets that title shot. So that match and that booking makes all the sense in the world. Samoa Joe versus Nick Wayne. I mean, I'm just oddly curious to see what that's going to be like. Poor Nick Wayne. Oh, I'd be icing my body now if I was Nick Wayne, because there's going to be some bruising there, and it's not going to be bruising on Joe. But should be a cool match. I don't think we see enough of Nick Wayne in the ring, frankly. Like, he's a unique talent. He's young, and he's got a lot to learn. But like, they signed this guy, and like he barely wrestles. And he's a good wrestler. He's a really good wrestler. He's really good in the ring. He used to wrestle here in Chicago for freelance wrestling, and whenever he came to town, like, he would just have these really cool matches. And you don't see that enough from him in AEW. So maybe we'll get something here, but I think it's going to be more Joe just hurting poor Nick Wayne. Julia Hart versus Jamie Hayter, rematch from a couple of weeks ago on AEW Dynamite. I think this should be a good one. Julia Hart, I was able to have an interview with Julia Hart for Sports Illustrated last Friday, and it dropped on Monday. Well, the written piece dropped last week, and the video just dropped on the Takedown on SI YouTube channel. So check that out. I mean, Julia Hart was great, really great, really knowledgeable about wrestling. I mean, she's learned from some really top tier talents. She's got a good head on her shoulders as far as like how to build a character, I thought. And she pulls from some really unique stuff, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, right? Like, who would have thought? But then when you do think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So cool interview with her. Hopefully you guys head over to Takedown on SI and check that out. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay face to face. Can they get on the same page? Two rivals as they take on the Don Callis family. I think, I'm curious as to where they go with this, but clearly they're building up to a tag team match. Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega against Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. Like, that seems to be where they're heading. I don't know how to feel about this yet. I for both of these guys, I just think that they need a little more than just this. They're too important to the company. But Kenny Omega is just coming back. I can understand that. You want to ease him back in, wrap this thing up with the Don Callis family. Okay, like, I can get behind that. But long term, you got to get Kenny Omega and Ospreay in a position where they're carrying your company. And this match, this isn't going to be it. But I am interested to see like what the rivals say to one another and how they talk to one another. So pretty cool talking segment there. And then of course we've got the tag team titles on the line: Private Party versus Hurt Syndicate. The Private Party winning those titles, like, big whoop. They've really done nothing with them. And I think the Hurt Syndicate could get a lot out of holding those belts. A lot out of it. I mean, MVP talking about those championships every week around the waist of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin do a lot for those titles. It kind of, I think it in a way, like, reinvigorates the tag team scene when you get them on those titles on stars like that. I hope I'm saying this right. Is it Say says here in our chat, and if I correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat. I don't mean to mispronounce, but I'm not entirely sure. Thank you for doing that. They say here, I don't see the Hurt Syndicate as tag team champions. I see them both as individual champions. This is where I disagree with that. I mean, I see both as individual champions potentially, especially Bobby Lashley, but there's no room for them right now, like in those individual title pictures. So you got to find another place. And the tag team scene needs, it needs some juice. They haven't gotten anything out of the Private Party as tag team champions. So try here. And I think that's exactly what Tony Khan's going to do. So I fully expect to see the Hurt Syndicate walk away with the titles tonight in the main event, wrapping up the show. And so I think it'll be a really nice bookend of the show, like really good way, really fun way to end it. Shay, okay, that's Shay. Okay, thank you so much, Shay. I appreciate the comment. Glad you're listening live. It's really good to have you. So hopefully you can continue doing that. Hopefully you find us over at Brass Ring Media. Try us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. We'd love to have you and everybody else. Thank you, Shay. All right, that's Dynamite. Last night was NXT, and I call it like a paint by numbers NXT show. The show started off with Tony D'Angelo defending his NXT North American Championship against Ridge Holland. D'Angelo won that match after Izzy Dame showed up and hit Ridge Holland, which was interesting. So they played up this, is Izzy Dame a part of the family now? I don't think so, but we'll see. We'll see. But Tony D'Angelo retains. No surprise there. Okay. Then they move after that. And I don't normally talk about like the backstage segments on these shows, but they had a backstage segment with Wes Lee. He was kind of talking to the men's locker room. Trick Williams walked in, and Wes Lee kind of called him an ex-champion and asked him how he was going to deal with that. And Trick slapped Wes Lee in the face so hard. Like, it was stunning, stunning to me. He slapped him into next week. Like, if there's every reason to go onto YouTube TV or however you watch the USA Network and find that slap, because it is insane. I haven't seen any memes of it yet, but he slaps the heck out of him. And they have a confrontation a little bit later in the show, which we'll get to. But yeah, it's something. Bailey and Julia had a little thing in the ring where Julia kind of professes her appreciation for Bailey. They're interrupted by Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. The audience were giving Jade and Roxanne some lethal heat opposite Bailey and Julia. So they're going to have a tag team match next week. Bailey and Julia against Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. That should be a big time. If the response to Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez is anything near what it was this week, next week, that's going to be a really hot match. Here, real quick. The unofficial sponsor of 1TS Daily, live right here at One True Sports, brought to you in part by Starbucks. Cheers. All right. Yeah, the boss says here, Trick left his mark, literally. Yeah. Oh my God, it was crazy. It was wild. All right, so Bailey and them had that segment, and then the next match was Wes Lee against Deion Lennox. Lee won really quickly, and then called Trick Williams out. They set up a match. No surprise there. You can't get slapped by that and not have a match afterwards. So it'll be Wes Lee and Trick Williams next week on the show. Lexis King versus Charlie Dempsey was up next. And for the Heritage Cup Championship, Lexis King beat Charlie Dempsey to retain the NXT Heritage Cup. Lexis King has been playing this character that he's trying to find himself, and he's going back to the basics, and he's trying to be a better person. And this week he essentially threw that all into the audience's face and just cheated to win. And there you go. So now they've got him, as a heel once again. And, we'll have to see where that goes. But yeah, he's a heel now for sure. Jada Parker wrestled Carmen Petrovic. Petrovic won, beat Parker. I don't know what's going on with Parker, but boy, it's been a bit of a fall from grace from her. Just she's lost a lot of matches and she doesn't seem to be getting the focus that she used to get not that long ago. So I'm not sure what to make of that. We'll have to keep watch. Nico Vance and Brooks Jensen beat Channing Lorenzo and Luca Crucifino. And then in our main event, Obafemi beat Eddie Thorpe with a pinfall to retain the NXT North American Championship. So that was your main event. Grayson Waller and Austin Theory were on this show, and they kind of came out at the end and kind of just mouthed off to Obafemi. Trick Williams stood in the ring and stared down Obafemi and the title, so they're going to go somewhere with that. Lot of balls in the air. A lot of balls in the air right now. Shay says here, Parker's in a scandal right now where it involves some transphobic allegations. That's not good. You don't want to hear that about her. Yeah, unfortunate. But thanks for the heads up. The boss says here something surfaced online with Jada and Jey Uso. Okay, I hadn't heard that one either. I gotta do some reporting on this, and I will. Eddie says here, Oba freaking rules. Yeah, he's a really strong talent. Yeah, and I think he can really carry the NXT brand. I just don't know how long he has in NXT. You know, like the main roster is going to want him. And you know that he'll do great up there. I think he's got a really good personality. He can go in the ring, and he can talk. For sure. And that I think is like the best. To me, that's the best part. You know, is that he's got that presence on the microphone. All right, you guys, we'll wrap up there. Have a great Wednesday. So much fun talking to you all today and then having our show. We'll review AEW Dynamite tomorrow and so much more. So thanks to the boss. Thanks to Shay and Eddie and Andrew, of course. And who else? Darren joined the show, Matthew, and everybody else in the live chat. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, if you're watching the show and you want a little bit more of what I do and what my team does and how we do it, how we talk about wrestling, head over to Brass Ring Media on YouTube. You can subscribe there. Also, you can subscribe to Brass Ring Media on your podcast feeds, on your favorite podcast app, whatever that is. We're there. Just search Brass Ring Media. And if you're interested in membership, we'd love to have you. We'd love to try to earn your business. And earn your $4 a month. So head over to patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. It's Royal Rumble season. It's WrestleMania season. You'll get a lot for your money. You always get a lot for your money, but especially here on the road to WrestleMania. Cool. Once again, that's patreon.com/Brass Ring Media. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining in. Once again, have a wonderful Wednesday. Stay warm if you're cold, like I will. And we'll talk to y'all tomorrow right here on TS Daily. I'm Zack Heydorn. We'll talk to y'all later.